Hi everyone, Helen Blunden here. I hope you're happy, healthy and well. I've been sitting here thinking about what video I'm going to share today, and I thought I'd do a vlog style video simply because I have been going through and reading a whole heap of books which somehow in hindsight they've all been linking to each other. And at the same time, given that this channel is all about some of the life lessons that I learned through the books I'm reading, sometimes the books that I pick out quite randomly all start to link with each other in various themes. And sometimes I think to myself, are they worthy of having one video where I share those life lessons, or whether I put them all together and then somehow talk about the questions that have arisen from me reading them and what sits well with me and what doesn't. Now, the three books I want to talk about today are all very different from each other. One book I haven't read. So let's start with the very first book, which is from Rickstad, called Lilith. This was not a book I had chosen for myself. In fact, my husband, who is very big on crime thriller books, said to me, I'm going to enjoy this one. Enjoy being a very strange word. You don't really enjoy the themes that were coming out of this book. He's an author. I've not read any of his books. He's American. But I must admit, the very first thing I thought about this book, the black and white nature of it, was I thought it was a non-fiction book, simply because many years ago, I used to have this non-fiction book, which was all about how to deal and present yourself in business, which was called Thick Face, Black Heart, and it had the same cover. And when I think about what that business book is about, how you present a very thick face and a black heart to be able to deal with a very patriarchal side of business, that was the very first thing I thought about with this book. Now, Lilith is a very interesting story. And I tell you what, it's written in first person with a lot of short sentences, and you get immersed into it quite intensely, quite deeply, and very, very quickly. It is explained as a visceral gut punch of a tale, a blistering and bracing story layered with emotional resonance and deep understanding of the human condition. This is very in-depth, but ultimately the theme is about a woman who has a young son who takes her son to school, as she does every single day, but this particular day her son felt that he didn't want to go to school. And it just so happened that there was a shooter at the school, and there was going to be the potential of a massive gun violent act at the school, and she in fact saves 17 children from this violent man, but in so doing her son gets shot and he's hurt in the and her son gets hurt in the situation, and she has to look after him. But she then goes on this act of revenge to try and kill the person who is trying to put a new law which allows people in that state to be able to carry a weapon without a permit. And so this book has very heavy themes, not of revenge in some way, even though there is a revengeful act, but also about who causes the violence in America, and in fact anywhere around the world, who causes the violence, and is very much a book about the men and violent nature that they have. So I found it very difficult in some sense to be able to explore this, because at the same time I was reading Kathy Lette's new book called The Revenge Club, 4 Score Women, One Perfect Plan. And you can see ultimately, very first thing that you see is a very serious book and a very light-hearted book, but ultimately they deal with a similar theme around the patriarchy and around how women get back to men and have revenge on men by getting dressed up as them and being able to infiltrate the inner circle to get things done. So I saw these two books as one end of a spectrum. Imagine a line. One line on one side is a man writing as a woman who dresses as a man to infiltrate a situation and to cause a revengeful act. And then this one on the other side, which is written by a woman, a comedian, in fact, who's written over 20 books, very well known. And here we have 4 women in their 50s who are pretty much being cancelled and disappeared by the men who feel as if that middle-aged women simply, no one wants to read about middle-aged women. No one wants to work with middle-aged women. So they come together by dressing up as men to infiltrate their circle and to create some revenge. So can you see the links here? Now, the third book I was also reading at around the same time was Naomi Alderman's The Power. In fact, this book and Naomi Alderman's new book called Future were 2 books that were part of a book club that I am running, that I started. This book was Naomi Alderman's most well-known book. However, unfortunately, I couldn't read it simply because the way that she writes, I found it very difficult to write, so I had to leave it. But the concept again was all about young women having discovered this power in themselves to be able to generate electricity through their fingers, and then they get back at men. So another revengeful book. It was quite accidental that I started reading these books again with similar themes. Now, and I thought to myself, should I do a review on each of them, or should I do one together? And as part of me, I thought to myself, why am I struggling a lot to try and share some life lessons out of these books? And I think it comes down to the fact that of this concept of revenge and the concept of themes such as gun violence, such as the cancel culture, such as the Me Too movement, such as ageism, such as sexism, such as the invisibility of middle-aged women, all are very current themes that a lot of us are experiencing right now. And it's the reason why, in some way, I didn't want to create this video or to share it, simply because it is simply too raw. In some ways, it is easier to pick up a classic book, a book of literature, which have themes about love and hate and revenge, but there's kind of like a distance from them, simply because they were written of a different time. There were certain situations happening at the time, whereas these themes of gun violence, ageism, sexism, cancel culture, the wokeism culture, all are very current and all are, I guess, very touchy subjects that we have no answer for. We are simply right in the thick of it right now. And I could say my view, but the truth is, I don't really have a view, in the sense that I'm waiting to see how things play out, because right now everything seems to be a bit of a mess. For gun violence, this is an interesting topic, because as an Australian, we don't have the situation that is currently happening in America. To get a permit to have a gun in Australia requires a lot of strict controls, and it's highly, highly regulated. It's very difficult to get a gun. At the same time, though, also listening to some Americans talk about their guns and talk about their weapons and their God-given right. To anyone outside, definitely to me as an outsider, outside of America, this seems like a very strange concept to us. Gun to me means the ultimate result is to kill someone, to kill another human being. And I simply don't understand this idea of a God-given right. Which God? How? How did God give someone the God-given right to kill someone else with an automatic rifle? I just don't understand. But at the same time, should I understand? I don't know. I don't have the answers. And so these are the very difficult, I guess, questions that I had. And even with this book, Kathy Lette, now in her book and in current books that I'm finding in modern day books, and I don't even know if I should be saying this, but sometimes I feel that the characters and the plots in certain books, current day books, is they put in all sorts of different diverse characters, which is great, but ultimately sometimes I feel as if they're doing to tick a box, the fact that, you know, have we got someone who is from an LGBTI background? Have we got someone who has got a disability? Have we got someone who, and so they've put in, like sometimes I do feel that in books they put in all sorts of different characters just to make sure that no other parts of society are excluded. And I don't know whether that is a good or a bad thing, because in my head, I'm trying to equate it with what is currently happening in the world. And what I'd like to think is I'd like to take a step back and not be lectured to at times and not be told what the way of the world is. What I'd like to be able to understand is to be able to ask questions instead, be able to learn and understand and have people tell me why and what and how, so that I could then understand the intention. I can understand what is happening. So with Kathy Lette's book, I found at times that even though it was a very comical, funny concept, there were elements in this book that I found was a bit too unbelievable. And similarly with this book, around the concept of believability, about a woman dressing as a man to get into a situation, to infiltrate a situation, to seek revenge. And I don't know whether revenge actually is an answer for a lot of the world problems that we're having. And maybe this is why it's sitting very uncomfortably for me when I read books about women seeking revenge. I don't feel any sense of satisfaction sometimes. And I don't feel as if it will actually achieve anything. And in some way, that is why I felt that reading these books, they were somehow aligned in some way because of those various themes, but at the same time, they also confused me because I don't believe in an eye for an eye. I don't believe in revenge. I believe in being for people to be able to sit down with each other, to talk out and to ask questions and to seek understanding and to be empathetic to their situation, but to be able to create yourself into someone else, to change and morph yourself and take the physical form of a man to go into a situation and then wreak havoc again, to actually apply the same violent, revengeful acts that in the past didn't hold true or didn't solve the situation. How does that work out again? So hence my confusion and my life lessons out of reading books that are very similar in theme but are completely different genres and are written by two I guess, different genders, obviously the male and the female, and also the characters changing into the different genders to seek revenge. So yeah, very, very interesting books, and hence why I found it very difficult to kind of share some of my own life lessons out of each of them separately. So that is all I have for you today. Let me know what you think if you've read any of these books. Regardless, I recommend them all, even though I haven't read this one, Naomi Alderman, because I did find her writing a little bit difficult to read. I do recommend them. So let me know what you think if you've read any of these books, or even about the topic. Am I going on a rant about something that is irrelevant? Have I approached it differently? Am I just on a completely different tangent? I don't know. So anyway, thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.